Okay. Welcome. Good morning.
There's one.
I'm Bob Hepp.
Okay.
I'm the district attorney for the FAA for the Court of the High Seas, the Caribbean District. You have all been selected as members of the jury because today we are going to put on trial 5 notorious, very dangerous aviation criminals. And you are going to be part of the jury that discusses their guilt or innocence. So obviously we've got few more than 12 angry men here.
You guys are all squared away.
We've got some,
Nothing can
your
go wrong,
input
right?
is going to be taken if you've got a connected device, if you've bought the internet package.
Watch your step on the cable.
And you've got a connected device, then the court clerk, Brandy Garcia, is going to walk you through connecting your internet-enabled device so that you can cast your vote. If you don't have a connected device, then we're going to go old school and raise your hand and you still get a vote. Okay? Brandy?
If you have purchased the internet package and have an internet-enabled device, you should be able to open up your camera on your phone, on your smartphone, and scan the QR code. This will bring you to the website that we'll be using for voting today. It's going to ask you, it'll ask for an email, but if you shouldn't have an account yet, you'll click the second link that says sign up now for very quick questions, first name, last name, email and password, and then you'll be able to sign in. So if anyone needs help, I can hop down and help you out real quick, but otherwise, like I said, you can just raise your hand to vote. So we'll give you guys another, maybe about a minute or so to try that sign up.
And is anyone having trouble signing in?
Yes, that's what we're looking for.
It asks you to create an account. It's just 4 quick questions. One is first name, next is last name. So it's not really too terribly difficult. That's
I'm the bailiff. I'm chopped liver.
okay, we ready?
I believe so, yep. All rise. The U.S. Court of the High Seas is now in session. The Honorable Judge Martha presiding.
I will have you know that I insist on strict order in my court. So there.
Your Honor, we call the first case today's docket, U.S. versus Mr. Willie Loggum. Mr. Willie Loggum, you can proceed to the stand.
I'm escorting you, sir. Okay, you go there.
Place your left hand, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You may take your stand, podium.
You may recognize that's a far aim that he's signing or swearing on.
He needs a microphone. Mr. Prosecutor, please state your case.
Okay, you can tell this is very well rehearsed. Your Honor, Mr. Loggum here is an FAA certified flight instructor. And on June 13th of 2024, Mr. Loggum was administering instruction to a Ms. Adele Chandel in an A36 Bonanza, intending to issue her a complex and a high-performance aircraft endorsement in that Bonanza. That day, Ms. Shondell did not have her best day flying, and she didn't meet Mr. Logum's minimums for awarding that endorsement. And at the conclusion of that flight, Mr. Logum recorded the flight in Ms. Shondell's logbook, but also put that she also logged it as pilot in command time. So even though she did not yet have her high performance or her complex endorsement.
Really?
Really.
This sounds very serious.
It is serious, Your Honor. But wait, there's more. Her last flight review was over 3 years old. Not only did Ms. Shondell not have the appropriate endorsements, but her medical was expired as a third class for over 7 months, and she hadn't made a single engine landing in over 10 months. So she was not qualified to do any of that. So clearly she could not have been PIC for this flight, and Mr. Logum should not have endorsed Ms. Shondell's logbook as PIC.
Oh, that sounds really serious. So, Mr. Logum, what do you have to say for yourself?
Well, Your Honour, Adele is back trying to work her way up to an airline career, like many of our clients these days. She's trying to log as many high performance and complex hours as she can. And you all know how hard these days it is to find a flight school and an instructor who has the ability to teach high performance and complex, with all these technically advanced airplanes coming along and taking over from the ones we used to use that would meet that requirement. Anyway, she came along and she wanted to make her logbook look as good as possible. I wasn't real sure if it was okay for her to log that time as PIC. And Your Honour, you might recall when we first met, I worked for a different organisation, the Australian equivalent of the FAA, and part of my role was writing regulations. I know how hard it is to write regulations that are unambiguous. But even with my background, I looked at Regulation 6151E, and I wasn't quite sure if it was okay for her to log that time as PIC time. But with her being so cute and all, and there she is up in the back there, put your hand up, Kimberly, I mean Adele. With her being so cute and all, I thought it wouldn't hurt anything if I just gave her that PIC time. I'm very sorry if I did something wrong, and I'm sure I won't do it again if I did do something wrong.
Well, Mr. Logum, we really appreciate your taking responsibility, but let's see what the jury has to say. Mr. Prosecutor, will you poll the jury?
Thank you, Judge Martha. Okay, if you check your connected device right now, you'll see that you'll have these same selections that you've got up in front of you, the ones that are kind of jumping around a little bit. So please go down through those selections, and as you select them, it'll pop up on the screen here on what your selections are, if this all works correctly. I think that with all these people on the internet, it may be getting a little slow today.
I got Seymour Cloud.
Okay. Okay. That's a later one. All right, so let's go through old school and we'll catch up with Seymour Cloud on the next one. Okay, so up at the top, how many think that that Mr. Logum is guilty, that he can't log PIC time without the proper endorsements? No one? Okay. How about cannot log PIC time without a current flight review? No one? Can't log PIC without a current medical or basic med? Can't log PIC time with a flight on with passenger that doesn't have landing currency, or with a student that doesn't have landing currency.
She got her first 3 landings after the first approach.
That's right. I've been on that flight. And then how about guilty because all of the above? Have to have all of those. Okay, starting to see some hands there. All right, how many say that Willie Logum is innocent? Your Honor, it appears as though the jury is split. They can't decide whether Willie Loggum is guilty or innocent, so it's up to you.
Well, Mr. Prosecutor and Mr. Loggum, I can certainly understand the difference, the confusion between acting as PIC and logging PIC time. I happen to have before me a copy of the FAR, and mostly what it does not say, it's pretty clear in what it does not say. The FAR 6151 Echo rules on the logging of PIC flight time. And it says that a sport, recreational, private, commercial, or ATP may log PIC flight time for flights when the pilot is the sole manipulator of the controls of an aircraft for which the pilot is rated, or when the pilot is the sole occupant of the aircraft. It says nothing about a requirement for endorsements, current flight reviews, a current medical, landing currency, or anything else. All of those are required for a pilot to act as PIC, which is different from the simple requirements to log PIC flight time. Mr. Loggum, it appears that we have wasted your time. You are free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, come on, give me a break. I'm up for GS 15 next month. And all that's rated on my conviction rate. You're doing nothing to help my conviction rate here. Give me a break, Your Honor.
Then you should be more selective about which cases you choose to prosecute.
Well, there is that. So that has happened a little bit now that the FAA has gone from an enforcement mentality to a compliance mentality, but still we've got a ways to go. Work with me, Your Honor. Come on.
Your Honor, our next case today of U.S. versus G. Owen Strait. Mr. Strait. Left hand. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
May take your seat.
Mr. Prosecutor, please state your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Strait's a commercial airplane, single-engine airplane land pilot with an instrument rating. At the time of this occurrence, Mr. Strait was instrument current as well as held a current flight review and landing currency. On April 13th of 2024, Mr. Strait departed the Manassas Regional Airport on an IFR flight plan wanting to do some practice approaches. His clearance was as follows: cleared round robin to the Manassas Regional Airport, fly the Arsenal 5 departure, accept maintain 2,000, expect 3,000 in 10 minutes. Departure frequency is 128.52 and squawk 4376. Mr. Strait departed as instructed and was handed off to Potomac Approach, where he requested the RNAV approach to runway 22 at Culpeper. And we'll take a look at this departure procedure and plate, or maybe we will. So over here, we've got the Manassas Regional Airport. Depart, go up to 800 feet, and then make a left turn to intercept the 236 bearing inbound to the Casanova VOR that's right there. So Mr. Strait was departing as instructed. Then Potomac instructed him to continue on the Arsenal 5, climb and maintain 3,000 feet. After Mr. Strait was established on the 236 bearing inbound to Casanova, that's this section right there, he was at 3,000 feet. Potomac cleared Mr. Straight directly to the Doyot intersection and then cleared him for the approach. Let's take a look at the approach plate. So this is the RNAV to runway 22 at Culpeper. And Mr. Straight was coming in off of the transitioning from the departure procedure, and this is Doyot intersection right there. There's the procedure turn, and then the final approach course into Culpeper Airport right there. Okay, so he proceeded directly to the Doyot intersection and was at 3,000 feet, continued on the, and instead of making the procedure turn, Mr. Straight went straight in. Okay, sorry about that.
Decorum
the
in my
government-
court, please, Mr. Prosecutor.
I'm sorry?
Decorum in my court, please.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. We'll try to do better. The government believes that Mr. Straight should have conducted a procedure turn at Doyot instead of going straight in.
Well, Mr. Straight, would you please come up and present your case? From the plates that the prosecutor has presented, it looks like a very narrow angle. So, Mr. Straight, do you have an explanation as to why you chose not to execute that procedure turn?
Well, Ms. Judge, as you so brilliantly pointed out,
Oh, BS. Let's get going.
well, as I was saying, Your Honor, I was flying very precisely that 238-degree bearing to Casanova when the great controllers at Potomac Approach cleared me direct to Doyot intersection, and they cleared me for the approach. Now, as I'm coming down and realizing that those wonderful controllers are so busy with all of those big aircraft going into Dulles, they really wouldn't want a little airplane like me to go and fly that whole procedure turn. So it's just a minor little 18-degree change in order to be right on the approach. I was already at 3,000 feet, and I knew that they would most want me just out of their way. So I turned and I flew the approach. And I think that this is exactly what they would have liked. And I'm sure that not flying that course reversal is exactly what they would expect out of a considerate pilot like me.
Mr. Straight, I'm sure that you believe that you're a considerate pilot. But let's see what the jury has to say. Mr. Prosecutor, please poll the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, jury. Now we may be on the right page. So if you look at your polling devices, is this what you see? Seymour Cloud. Okay. So maybe it'll work on the next one. So what do we think about Mr. G. Owen Straight? Going straight? Okay. Do we think that he's guilty because he's not on a segment that was marked no precision turn? Any hands there? Okay. Do we think that he was guilty because he wasn't specifically cleared for straight-in approach by ATC? Okay. How about guilty because he was not on vectors for the approach he wasn't on vectors from ATC? Okay. How about all of the above? And how many think that Mr. Straight is innocent? Oh, there goes my conviction record.
Well, it
Okay,
seems...
Judge, it appears as though the majority of them feel that Mr. Straight is innocent. What say ye?
Well, Mr. Straight and the jury are in good company, Mr. Prosecutor. It seems that small little organization called the Airline Pilots Association had exactly the same issue that you raised back in 1994. And the FAA Chief Counsel, I have pulled their decision up here, told Mr. Young of ALPA that procedure turns are mandatory except, number one, when receiving vectors for the approach, number two, when specifically cleared for a straight-in approach by ATC, number three, if the leg is labeled as no procedure turn, or number four, and I want a show of hands on anyone who's done this, if it's a timed approach from a fix. Hands if you've ever done that. Mr. Prosecutor, you're out of order. Okay, so.
Thank you, Your Honor.
In every other case, including your situation, Mr. Straight, the pilot must do a procedure turn even when ATC is busy and even when you're trying to be a considerate pilot. As a side note, 91-175J prohibits you from making a procedure turn under those four conditions I just covered, unless you are specifically cleared to do so by ATC. So you have to ask for it in that case. So Mr. Straight, I sentence you to 1 hour in the brig. Bailiff, please escort the prisoner to the brig.
Yes, dear. Mr. Straight, you're going straight to the brig.
Your Honor, our next case is U.S. versus Mr. Seymour Cloud. Mr. Seymour.
It's got foggles on.
Right hand on the book. Nope, left hand on the book. Left hand on the book. You're correct. Right hand up. Repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth.
I swear to tell the truth.
The whole truth.
The truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
Thank you. You may take your seat.
Mr. Prosecutor, please state your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thanks for that last conviction. Your Honor, Mr. Cloud is a CFI and an instrument instructor. And on May 4th of this year, Mr. Cloud endorsed a Mr. Max Thrust for his commercial single-engine ride under Part 61. That time, Mr. Thrust was a private single-engine land pilot with an instrument rating. When Mr. Thrust got to sit down with the DPE on May 6th of 2024 and began the qualification phase of his check ride, it was then that the DPE discovered that the applicant, Mr. Thrust, did not meet the aeronautical experience requirements of FAR 61-129 Alpha 3 i. That requirement states that the applicant must have 10 hours of instrument training as part of his commercial training. Mr. Cloud both failed to accomplish that required training and failed to ensure that all of the aeronautical experience requirements of FAR 61-129 were met.
That sounds pretty sloppy. Mr. Cloud, please approach the podium and enlighten us as to the reasons for your actions, or the lack of any reason.
I sure can, Your Honor. As the FAA dude just pointed out, Max already had his instrument rating. And everybody knows that you have to have 40 hours of instrument training to get an instrument rating. That reg, that 61-20 whatever, just says they need 10 hours of instrument training to meet the requirements. Since I knew he had his instrument rating, I knew he just had to meet, he already had to have met 10 hours of instrument training, so I went ahead and signed him off. That's all.
Well, that sounds like pretty well-founded reasoning. Mr. Prosecutor, let's poll the jury and see what they have to say.
And perhaps, Your Honor, maybe their devices might work this time. All right. Do your devices still say Seymour Cloud? All right. Maybe this will work then. Okay, so can you see the choices on your phone? First one is guilty. The 10 hours of required training must be part of the 61 commercial training. Second is bravo. The logbook entries from training towards the instrument rating did not specify that the training met the requirements of 61-129. C, both A and B above. And D is that Mr. Cloud is innocent. Okay? Do you have choices on your phones? Have you put them in? Yes. Did anything happen? No. Okay.
Response recorded, and that's all it seems about.
There might just be too many of them.
I'm sorry?
I think there's just too many of them.
Yeah. They'll probably, about 11:30 tonight, they'll start popping in. Okay. When it works, it's really cool. If you've never seen this before, it starts filling in bar graphs across the bottom with percentages. So maybe next time when we're not on a cruise ship. Okay. Refresh the page. Is that possible, Brian? Okay. All right, we're going old school. How many think that he's guilty because he didn't have the 10 hours of required training done as part of his instrument training done as part of his commercial training required by 61-129, 3 alpha, 3 little I? Okay, nobody? Then how about because the instrument, because the instrument training that he had as part of his instrument rating did not specify that this met the requirements of 61-129.
129 says specifically you have to have emergency operations including
Right.
and 61-65C does not say that.
Okay? You're getting ahead of me. So, how about C? That he's guilty based on C. Okay, we've got a couple over here. And how many think that this dude is guilty or innocent? Okay? All right, once again, we've got a split jury, Your Honor.
All
So
right.
it's up to you.
This seems to be a tough one. So we have Chief Counsel interpretations, I'm seeing, and interpretations of the interpretations of the interpretations, and I still commonly hear very intelligent people, like this jury, going back and forth on this one to this very day. I've read through all the interpretations, Mr. Prosecutor, and I'm actually more confused than before I read them. Mr. Prosecutor, you're representing the FAA as an attorney. Would you mind taking a crack at this one?
I'll certainly do my best, Your Honor. All right, to fully understand where this requirement comes from, we need to go back in time. So let's all jump in the time machine and head back to the 60s and 70s. And for those of us, and we've done several polls about who the older folks are here that have got experience flying back in those times, the instrument rules, the rules for gaining an instrument certificate were different back then. Instead of not having a total hourly requirement to be eligible to take your check ride for an instrument rating, they had, you must have at least 200 hours. So back then, folks that were training towards their instrument rating had to have 200 hours of flight time to be eligible to take their instrument check ride. So what happened was that it was very commonplace for flight schools to use instrument and commercial together to be time-building vehicles for one another. So you would work on commercial. I'm seeing a head nod there, Peggy. so that you would use commercial as a time builder for instrument to get to that 200 hours and instrument as a time builder for commercial to get to the 250 hours. I was a product of that. I think, Judge, you said that you were a product of that. I see Peggy nodding her head. So that's the way it was. So that's where this came from, because it was very commonplace back then for more people to get their commercial certificate before they got their instrument rating. So they wanted to make sure, the FAA wanted to make sure that people that were getting a commercial pilot certificate had a moderate amount of instrument training, even though they might not have an instrument rating. Okay, so that's where this comes from. So when that requirement was changed, that caused a lot of CFIT accidents, because we had a lot of people who had done most of the training towards their instrument rating, did not yet have their instrument rating, so they couldn't file IFR. They were a little braver on dealing with weather. They'd be out there flying around and go from cumulostratus to cumulogranite. And we had a lot of CFIT accidents back then. That's where that whole effort on CFIT came from, and this was a major contributor of those CFIT accidents. So in response to that, the FAA said, well, perhaps let's not put them in the position where they're trained, but they can't file IFR. It would be safer if they could just file IFR. So let's drop that requirement for 200 hours to take the instrument rating, and they did. But 61-129, this part of it that required the 10 hours of training stayed in there. Okay, so that's where it came from. So then it generated some questions as things went on. And Mr. Theriault was one of the first to ask the question of the FAA General Counsel on, okay, what does this mean? What counts towards this, to meeting this 10-hour requirement in 61-129, and what doesn't count? And here's the essence of what the FAA General Counsel said. So, are the requirements of 61-129 met by the student getting an instrument rating or training for an instrument rating? The answer is no. This was the first response that they provided. They said the reason for that is that and it was what you were starting to bring up, sir, is that they said that the instrument training and the aeronautical experience of 61-129 may also be used to count towards the aeronautical experience of 61-65. That's not what we wanted. We wanted the 61-65, the instrument training, to count towards the commercial, not for the commercial to count for the instrument, because most people now will get their instrument rating before their commercial. But they said that if you wanted to do that, that's fine. The reason for this is that the training required under 61-65, that's the instrument rating training, is general, while the training under 61-129, Charlie 3, India, lists very specific operations that must be accomplished to satisfy that requirement. Is that what you were saying, sir?
Yes, true. And you can use that time to you have to document that you met those specific requirements for 61-129.
You're way ahead of me. So, all right, so that letter was issued on October 8th of 2010. So did this answer the question adequately? Well, probably not, because, first off, fasten your seatbelt. Let's take a little dive into the general and the specific training. So the very general training that was called out in that Theriault letter, and that's the training under 61-65 for the instrument rating, is all of these things. And 1 through 8 over here, if you go through an ACS, that's the areas of operation that you'll find for an instrument rating. So, and it's pretty, in my mind, I've been doing this for a couple of minutes, it's pretty comprehensive. That covers about everything that you would cover in training somebody for an instrument rating. Okay? So then we go on and take a look at the aeronautical experience rating, and this is keep in mind, the general aeronautical experience that's called out in the theory alt letter. And I'm not going to read through all this, but this is also found in the FARs. This is the checklist that a good instructor would go through to make sure that all of those aeronautical experience ratings are met, so that when they go to a check ride with a DPE, they're not wasting their time and the DPE's time. Okay, so gee, if this is the general stuff, I don't know if I want to see what the more specific stuff looks like, but let's do it anyway. So we take a look at 61-129, and this is the requirement, and I didn't have the little bow legs up there because PowerPoint doesn't like to do that, but very specific operations. This is it. These are the very specific operations that the theory alt letter from the chief counsel provided. This doesn't look like it's very specific compared to the other stuff at all. So that's kind of a head scratcher there. So now let's move on. Apparently some other folks thought that too. And the AOPA, Christine Hartzell, that same year, 2010, wrote to the to the chief counsel and asked for a clarification of the interpretation. And they came back and said that anticipate that for commercial pilot applicants who already hold an instrument rating, the hours of instrument training used to obtain that rating will meet at least some, if not most, or quite often meet all of the regulations for the instrument aeronautical experience as required under 61-129. What did they tell Mr. Theriault about applying instrument training towards meeting these commercial requirements? That it met none of it. No, they don't count that way. So there's already a disconnect there. So they did go on to say, to tell Christine Hartzell that this doesn't add requirements on top of what's already out there. Okay, there's some good news there. So that sat around, and then Mr. Theriault went back and said, okay, now you got me, I'm really confused. And wrote another letter, and he had a helicopter school. And so when they're talking about 6191 Charlie here, it's Charlie for helicopters and it's Alpha for airplanes. Helicopters only need 5 hours, airplanes need 10 hours. Okay? So they go on to say that the letter of interpretation provided to Hartzell said that the hours of training used meet some, if not most, or quite often meet all of the requirements. Great. Okay, so that kind of clears it up. So this sat around from 2011, and then there were still questions in the industry about this. There were still people that weren't entirely clear, and AOP came back again with another letter and got a letter of interpretation back. This was David Ord's letter in 2018, and it says that it allows for the flight training to count for both 6165 and 61-129 so that it can count, and that they were merely clarifying the requirements, but the flight time must be logged consistent with 6151 and documented in a manner that demonstrates the time counts towards the commercial pilot certificate and ratings, okay? So we have to go back to 6151, ECHO I believe it is specifically, to see what those specific logging requirements look like. So let's take a look at that. The 6151 Golf. And here's what Golf says. A person may log instrument flight time or instrument time only for that flight time when the person operates the aircraft solely by reference to the instruments under the actual or simulated instrument flight conditions. It doesn't call out anything about specifically identifying something as meeting the requirements of 129, yet the industry has kind of said, okay, that's the way we're going to cover ourselves, and that's been generally accepted to prove it. So now, is anybody else's head spinning right now on these requirements and where they've gone? All right, so to make a little bit of sense of it and what's generally regarded as acceptable in the industry, we've got a couple of suggestions, and these are not anything, this certainly did not come from a letter of interpretation from the Chief Counsel. These are some suggestions. One, you could do your training under Part 141 because it's got a whole different set of rules that don't include that 10-hour requirement. So you could fly the 10 hours as part of the commercial training. You could tag all the instrument training that you do with your instrument students with meets 61-129 and DPEs. Is that acceptable to you? If they've got a sentence in there that says meets 61-129, just simply, you're okay with that? Anybody that's not? Okay? So that seems to be generally acceptable. So some other ways, if it was your commercial student and your instrument student, I don't think anybody's going to be too upset at going back in and penning in meet 61-129 if you just kind of forgot to do it at the time, which is commonly done. Some different ways forward, if you're part of a 141 school, you could include the statement that all of the instrument in your instrument training course, that all of the instrument training meets the requirements of 61-129 Alpha 3I. Or what we talked about yesterday was having King schools, since we all use the King School curriculum, to include in their 61 and their 141 course a little statement that says all of the instrument training in this course meets the requirement of 61-129, okay, as far as what we can do in the future. So, Your Honor, based on this, it appears that Mr. Cloud did not do the training with his student. This was a 61 check ride that he was preparing max thrust for. He did not log the 10 hours of instrument time as part of his training towards that commercial. And he did not tag the 61-129 in the remarks section while his student was going through the instrument portion. So it appears as though Mr. Cloud is guilty.
Well, based on that eloquent and confusing but unconfusing discussion, Mr. Cloud, it appears that indeed you should have either done and logged the 10 hours or made sure that the previous instrument training time was tagged as meeting the requirements of 61-129. So I have two verdicts. Number one, I sentence King Schools to adding the qualifies under 61-129 to all their TCOs and syllabi for both King Schools and the Cessna Flight Training Program. And number two, Mr. Cloud, I sentence you to 1 hour of community service. Now, most of us will be at the bar tonight at 7 o'clock, and our community expects to be well served between then and 8. Bailiff, please escort our prisoner to his place of duty at the bar.
Yes, dear. We're going to the bar, buddy.
Your Honor, next up is U.S. versus Wing in a Prayer Flight
School.
School.
You did a great job of that.
Represented by Reverend Tom Swift. Reverend, left hand on the book, right hand up, repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
You may take your seat.
Mr. Prosecutor, please state your case. Your conviction record is getting better.
It's doing better. I'm feeling better about next month's promotion. Yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. Reverend Swift is the owner and chief flight instructor for Wing and a Prayer Flight School. And his school provides flight instruction and rents aircraft to pilots, like many of ours does. As a flight school and an aircraft rental operation, Reverend Swift is required to maintain his aircraft in accordance with 91409 Bravo, and that is the requirement for a 100-hour inspection within each 100 hours of operation. On July 14th, 2024, Reverend Swift rented an aircraft in his fleet to Mr. Clarence Jones. That Cessna 172 had 99.2 TAC hours on it since the previous 100-hour inspection. Mr. Jones told Reverend Smith that he was planning to have the plane for 7 days for a trip with his wife and planned to put about 22 TAC hours on the airplane. Reverend Swift should not have let that plane go on the trip being fully aware that it would exceed the 100-hour requirement.
Well, that sounds like he rented an unairworthy airplane, Mr. Prosecutor.
I agree with you, Judge.
Well, Reverend Swift, it's sorry to meet under these circumstances, but would you please approach the podium and give us your side of the story?
I would be happy to, Your Honor. I cannot tell a lie. I did rent Mr. Jones that aircraft knowing that it would probably go past the 100-hour. But I interpreted the rule as that rule was only applicable to aircraft that was rented while doing instruction and not just a rented aircraft for personal use as Mr. Jones did. So I made the interpretation that because the aircraft was being rented and without one of my instructor pilots flying with him, that it was okay.
That does sound reasonable, but let's see what the jury has to say. Mr. Prosecutor, please poll the jury.
All right, we have just two choices on this one. By a show of hands, how many feel that the Reverend is guilty because the airplane should have had a 100-hour inspection, should have been within 100 hours, even with the 10-hour overage that's allowed? How many think that the airplane should have complied with the 100-hour inspection? Okay, 3, 4, 5, okay. How many think that he's...
Question from the jury.
Yeah, okay.
Was the airplane part of his instructional fleet?
Yes, it was. Okay. Now, how many feel that the Reverend is innocent? Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's slightly in the Reverend's favor for innocence.
Okay, well, Reverend Swift, lucky for you, the Chief Counsel's office has made the determination for us, and they agree with you. In October 2015, in a letter to Fly By Night Flight School, this is for real, they said the following: if Fly By Night is going to operate the aircraft to provide flight instruction for hire, then the aircraft must have had an annual or 100-hour maintenance inspection within the preceding 100 hours of time in service. If Fly By Night is going to rent the aircraft to a customer, however, and does not provide the pilot, that aircraft does not have to have an annual or 100-hour maintenance inspection within the preceding 100 hours. You are free to go. Your record's looking pretty spotty now, Mr. Prosecutor.
Your Honor, our last case is Sears Flight Training versus the Greater Podunk FSDO. Mr. Murray Hulling will be representing the Greater Podunk FSDO, and Mr. David Catton will be representing Sears Flight Training. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Make your seat.
Where's Mr. Hulling?
Mr. Hulling?
I'll see if I can find him, Your Honor.
Mr. Hulling?
I found him. He was busy.
Busier than too busy to come to court? Tell him we want him right now.
Hello? Yeah, Bill. Hey, how you doing? Hey,
Get ready to
yeah.
take his phone.
1 minute, please. Hey, you know, I heard your dog is sick. Well, hey, man, you know, that's pretty important. You wanted the day
Would
off?
you tell him to come
tell you
right
what.
now?
Why don't,
Mr. Hewitt, right now.
yeah, 1 minute, on the way. Yeah, hey, instead, why don't you take the week? You know, dogs are like family. You gotta take care of them. So, yeah.
Mr. Hulling!
Yes, Your Honor. Just one minute. Yeah.
This is my court and my time, and I don't put up with interruptions like this. We need your full attention.
Yes, Your Honor, yeah. Okay, hey, Bill, I
Hang
gotta
up
go.
your
I
phone
gotta go.
immediately, please.
Yeah, well, one more sec. Yeah, hey.
Bailiff, please seize his mobile phone immediately.
Delighted to, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the case anyway.
Murray, FAA. Murray, FAA.
We have minimal respect for your
That's the
credentials
case.
under the circumstances.
Hi, Murray, FAA.
Get sworn in.
Do what?
Take your hat off. Respect the court, please.
It'll mess up my hair. Okay.
You don't have any hair, Mr. Hulling.
Yes, Your Honor.
Left hand on the book. Right hand up and repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and I am the truth. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, sir. You may take a seat.
Okay.
So you're from the FAA, and you're here to do what?
Here to help.
Mr. Catton, please state your case.
Thank you, Judge Marta. So I'm David Catton. I'm the owner of Cirrus Aviation. We're a flight school in Florida. We've been operating under Part 61 since 1994 and Part 141 since July of 2001. In August of 2020, we advised the FSDO that we wanted to work towards examining authority in 5 of our 141 programs. The RPOI just laughed at us and said, do you know how hard it is to get examining authority? And even though if you could, we definitely don't have the manpower to do it. It's not going to happen. So we continue to work towards meeting the requirements, and we wanted to be approved for that things by August of 2021. We called them back, and at the time, we were advised by RPOI again that the Greater Podunk FBO, that we met all the requirements. We were in the process of meeting the requirement for 2 additional programs as well. And we'd like to be awarded the examining authority. POI advised us that they had a lot to do, and it was going to take a long time. So every 3 months we reach out, we ask them, how we were progressing on the approval, and every time we got the same response. And it was, well, maybe later, we're busy, it'll be tough. Since then, we have qualified for instrument and a commercial single engine program for the examining authority. In 39 months, we had 2 POI changed, we had 16 documented phone calls, 43 email exchanges, and we've made absolutely no progress. In that time, we estimate we've lost about $300,000, and that the examining authority would have brought. Your Honor, FAR 141.9 says, and I quote, the FAA issues examining authority to a pilot school for a training course if the pilot school and its training course meet the requirement of subpart D of this part. It doesn't say based on the workload of the FAA. We have met the requirement. That was never contested by the FSDO at any time. So the greater podunk FBO is the only avenue available to us to get that approval. Cannot fix the FAA staffing problem or the training issue, but I certainly can ask this court to help them actually do their damn job. Thank you, Your Honor.
Wow, this sounds like a very sensitive issue with your flight school, Mr. Catton. There must be other flight schools across the country that are dealing with this same issue. Mr. Hulling, as the office manager of the Greater Podunk FSDO, are you able to add anything to this discussion? If so, please approach the podium.
Yes, you're not getting it. All right, the FSDO, we wish we could approve examining authority for Mr. Catton's company. As everyone knows, the highest mandate is to ensure safety, that the FAA has safety in the NAS. Every FSDO is short operations inspectors. I know we've all heard that, and it is true. They're all loaded with work, overloaded. Examining authority is not the highest priority on the list of all the work inspectors have to do, Your Honor. At our FSDO, we only have 2 operations inspectors, and there's hours and hours that we only have so many hours, and I believe it's about 528 hours for 2 inspectors when you consider, these. 2,080 hours a year, 876 hours working on their certificates that are assigned. Each of these inspectors has 12 certificates. There's 520 hours of annual leave, 240 hours of required training each year, 120 that they serve on accident duty. There's 96 federal holidays, or 96 hours, yeah. 528 hours and 66 days total to accomplish all their work. And as you heard, I have one ops inspector, that's on dog leave for a week right now for a family, taking care of family. Neighboring FSDOs are in the same boat. There's no operation, or very few operations. There is a few FSDOs with no operations inspectors. And there's, so the 2 inspectors I have, both of them are under 2 years in the FAA. It takes 3 years to fully train inspectors, so they're in training status. At the same time, they each have 12 certificates. And obviously, we don't have any 141s that have examining authority, so we would need to do the additional training and surveillance, which is additional time we don't have. And I've checked with the other FSDOs for getting assistance from them in the local areas, and they do not have the bandwidth either. And Your Honor, we're perfectly aware that Cirrus Aviation, is requesting and has requested for years, but we just do not have the bandwidth to do it. Thank you.
Mr. Hulling, you make some very good points. Before I make my ruling, I'd like to hear what the jury says. Mr. Prosecutor, could you return and poll the jury?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. All right, we're going to assume that the devices aren't working properly, so what do we think? Is the Greater Podunk FSDO, embodied by Mr. Hewling here, guilty just because they're the FAA? How many? It's almost unanimous, Your Honor. Guilty. because the FAR says that the FAA issues examining authority exactly as Mr. Catton said, to a pilot school for a training course if the school and the course meet the requirements, okay, which they clearly did. Guilty because of the Milner letter, whatever that is, or D, guilty for all of the above. So how many say A? B? C? D? All the above? Okay. And how many think that the FSDO is innocent? Okay. So you're complicit in this. Okay. So it appears as though the jury feels that there is guilt in this case, Your Honor.
Well, in this case, I absolutely agree with the jury, Mr. Catton. And it appears actually that the FAA does as well. So much so that on September 2010, the Chief Counsel issued this response to Mr. Milner, who was dealing with a situation similar to Mr. Catton's. And in that letter, the Chief Counsel clearly states, FAR 141.9 does not indicate that the FAA has discretion. In other words, the FAA has no discretion to deny examining authority to a pilot school that has satisfied the requirements set forth in Part 141. For that reason, Mr. Hulling, this court finds you guilty. Since Mr. Catton and his flight school are the injured party, I will leave the determination of your punishment up to him with these options. Mr. Catton, do you choose that Mr. Hulling's punishment be to 1, swab the decks of the entire ship, or number 2, walk the plank? Okay, he wants to walk the plank. Bailiff, would you please blindfold the prisoner and escort him to the plank for a little swim?
Make the FAA walk the plank?
Yes.
Yes, dear.
Everybody who's happy about that, raise your hand.
Your Honor, that completes today's docket.
Very well. In that case, this course is dismissed. All the defendants, please come on stage. Defendants, come up here and take a bow. Let's get over here so the podium doesn't block us.
Show your appreciation for this great. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of time to practice.
What makes you say that?
Yeah, we sat around for about an hour last night and had pulled it all together. So the members of the cast, Mike Smith. Yeah. Billy Logan. Gio on straight, Barry. Seymour Cloud, Ed. Tom Swift, George. Murray is the Podunk FSDO chief. David, Cirrus Aviation owner. Brendy, the court clerk. Prosecutor. Bailiff John King. And Judge Martha.
And the script, the playwright was Bob Hepp, who wrote all of this, and I thought it was brilliantly done. This is an audience that is very interested in the subject and knowledgeable.
Very
of the subject.
appreciative.
Yeah.
The only problem with all of these cases is that they're real. And most of them shouldn't be cases.
And Murray
Yeah.
spent, what, 20 years with the FAA?
Thank you for your good humor about the FAA in this one, Murray.